Oh, Janice, can you start recording? Or can we get,
Hey, I'm recording it right now. I just started.
oh, perfect, Andy. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks for being here, everybody. This is exciting. We've got new ways of doing everything, selling houses, doing training. We're very fortunate today to have Barb Best from KW Advantage here with us. Barb's a very, very successful agent, number one in individual units, or number one individual
GCI.
GCI. Yeah, very good. It's just you and your licensed assistant, right?
Yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I'll leave the numbers and everything to you. Obviously, everybody's going to want to know what you're doing for farming, how you're doing it, and what they can do once we get to some semblance of normalcy.
Totally.
Replicate some of your results. So for all of you guys that are on right now, there's 13 people total. They're kind of adding every few seconds. So if you do, hi Dan, if you do have a question, if you're in a quiet room, unmute yourself and ask the question. If you're somewhere where there's some background noise, if you could go to the bottom of the screen and pull up the chat window and type something in there, we'll be monitoring everything. We want to make this as interactive as possible. So thanks for being with us, and over to you, Barb.
Hey, thank you so much, Irene, for having me. This is like my favorite topic, so I'm happy to do it. And I do encourage questions throughout because the interaction, it just makes the presentation better. So please jump in and ask any question you want. Okay, so, how much time do we have, Irene, for this?
We booked 90 minutes because we didn't know how long this was going to take. So
yeah,
you've got the time.
It'll be an hour, and then we can do Q&A throughout typically.
Perfect.
So today we're going to talk about what farming is for people that don't have a farm and how it's defined, why it's a good reason to farm, how to farm, what you need to know before you farm, and then we'll talk a little bit about the stages of farming and the expectations, and then just goals and tracking and a one-year door knocking plan, and we'll just get started.
Excellent.
So I just have to move this over so I can read. Okay. So this is my definition. I made it up. So it's a group. What is geographical farming? It's a group of homeowners in a specific community who you do not know yet, but who you will get to know over time through genuine relationship building and targeted strategies that you will implement on a consistent basis. Okay, got it. You can read it now. Okay.
I'm gonna make it full screen for them.
What's that?
I was gonna make it full screen for them.
Is this not full screen for you guys? Irene?
It's full screen for me. Everybody has to do their own full screen icon.
Okay.
This slideshow and start from the beginning.
Everybody has an individual full screen in their upper right hand corner.
Okay, hang on 2 seconds. Sorry. Is that better?
Oh, you didn't have your full screen on.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not technical. Okay, full disclosure. Okay, so there's the
That's
definition. Okay, so I got this from Mo Anderson at one of the, I don't know if it was family, no, this was at Bold. And I wrote it out on a card before I started door knocking. It's ask and it shall be given you, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that seeketh, I don't know, everyone that asketh receiveth, and they that seeketh. Anyways, the whole point, and those that knocketh, it shall be opened. And I thought that was great. It kind of kept me going in the beginning because I was very terrified of door knocking when I first started, just so y'all know. Farm your way to freedom. So once you plant the seeds and tend to them and nurture them, your farm will grow into a steady business with a predictable level of income. And it becomes a great second pillar of income. Aside from people's database and referrals and things like that, it becomes a great pillar that you can count on. So when I ask the question, what's your main source of business? Probably over 90% of agents will say it's sphere of influence and repeat and referral business, which is fantastic. And for me, I just kept making the same amount of money every year. And I kept going to all the KW courses and I'm like, who are these people farming? And I thought, I should probably try this. So that's how it all came about. I wanted to add another pillar of income and increase my income. So this chart here, I did this for a different location that I did this presentation in because their average sale price was 500 grand. But I know for your area, Irene, your average is probably closer to $1 million, correct? Or maybe more, I don't know.
Mm.
So just double the numbers here. So if your average income, you know, say your average income is 100 grand and your average sale price is $1 million, then you're looking at an extra $25,000 if you sell one home, and you times that by 8 homes. Say you sell 8 homes in a year, then that's gonna, if you go down to the other bottom part, if you sell 2 homes in a year, once you start adding your farm, you can see how your income is going to increase significantly. So I just wanted to put that in there to show you what a second pillar of income can do. So why farm, and how you can become the mayor of your farm. So as I mentioned, it adds a new pillar of income. You can actually increase your average point per transaction if you choose a farm, you know, that's higher than your average right now. When I first started, I was selling mostly condos, so my average price point was about 800 grand to about 700 to 800, and now it's about 1.1. So when you increase the average price point, obviously your commission goes up. So you also can increase the number of transactions you do by adding a farm. So it also builds brand recognition. When you start in your farm, it can make you famous. You become the credible go-to realtor. I see you everywhere. You get that kind of neighborhood status, and recognition translates to a strong perception of value. Commission objections rarely come up. They can come up in other situations, but once you're established in your farm, they rarely come up. You gain a competitive advantage because your competitors typically won't door knock consistently. I've seen a lot of agents in my farm area that will, you know, they'll knock once a year, maybe twice a year, but that's just not gonna cut it in terms of consistency. And gain knowledge. No one knows the farm better than you when you've started working in it. You truly are the expert. And how you sell that in a value proposition sort of way when you're with your clients on a listing appointment is that you understand buyer demographics and the psychographics of those buyers, and that, you know, you really understand who is buying these homes in this area. And again, most realtors aren't going to be able to compete with you at that kind of a level when you start speaking about that kind of thing. And if anyone has any questions, jump in. It's a sustainable business plan with consistency. It's a long-term strategy. It's not going to happen overnight, but you do gain a following over time. You build your credibility as the best choice, and they see you as hardworking and that you get results. It's an efficient use of time. There's no running around the city. It's harder to make excuses not to do it. Open houses are much more enjoyable because they're fun. You know, people come in, the neighbors get to know you more, and you can walk to your listing appointments and your open houses, which is amazing. Develop and improve your confidence. So once you're known, yes.
Can I jump in? I'm going to
please.
I'm going to give you a success story with the efficient use of time. No word of a lie. This was like my best example. We've had a geographic farm for quite some time, and you know, being in close proximity and being able to walk a really short drive to a lot of appointments has been awesome. And there was one case where I got an email from somebody I had been more or less in touch with, but they hadn't made a decision to do something. They texted me at like 10 o'clock on Friday night saying, you know, sorry to bother you, but we have an opportunity to buy something privately in Mississauga, and we wanted to get your input on, you know, what's going on with our house before we made the jump. Can you come over tomorrow afternoon? And I said, well, tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock, I'm going to be on the beach in Mexico. And they said, oh, so what are we going to do? I said, well, I'm not leaving until 9 o'clock. Do you want me to come at 7:30? And they said, sure. So I went at 7:30 in the morning because it was a 90-second drive from our house.
Yeah.
Went on vacation, guided them through the private sale while we were in Mexico, and then we came back and listed the property. So it was
amazing.
Really neat. Now, you know, I wouldn't have gone across town at 7:30 on a Saturday morning before a vacation, but you know, 90 seconds, it was good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing. It reminded me of the ice storm we had last spring? There was an ice storm. I can't remember if it was last spring when all the open house signs and people canceled all their open houses. And I was like, well, I'm going a block over. I might as well just go over there and I'll put a couple of signs out myself type of thing. And my open house was packed as a result because it was the only one that was open. So anyways, it's just, it's a nice, value add to your business. Anyways, okay, where are we here? Develop and improve your confidence. So once you're known, people begin calling you for advice, they call you for information, and they call you for listings. The word of mouth referrals within your farm. So these have been, I was at a family reunion in February, and a woman was running a course on farming, and I love this, she called them her VIPs. These are people that haven't sold with you yet, and they have done no business with you, but they come to your open houses, they love you, and they actually give you referrals to other people that are either thinking of selling or thinking of buying in the area. So it's great to treat your VIPs like gold. And that's what I've done. So, okay, where are we? Your reputation improves or gets known. People trust you. They want to list with you because they see your results and they want your sign in the lawn. They see value in that. Your conversion rates significantly increases. It increases because you do know more than anybody else in the area, and you speak at that level. Your commission rate is rarely discussed, and you do become the expert over time. So what do you need to know to become that neighborhood expert? So you obviously, a lot of people ask, well, where should I start my farm? Like, should I go somewhere that they don't know me, or that I don't know the area, and maybe it's a higher price point, like, you know, a couple of million, like Bridle Path or something like that, or, you know, I just personally think that you should start your farm in an area that you know, and preferably an area you live, because you're so intimate with the details of that area that it's actually, it just comes naturally. I can tell them how long it takes to get to the bus stop, or how long it takes to get to the subway, or what grocery store or what restaurant in the neighborhood is the best. So that's just a personal opinion. Other people may have a different answer. In my particular area, there are 600 homes and about 2,500 condos. I know the builder of all the homes. I know all the type. If you already have a farm or you're thinking about a farm, try and Google to get the original builder floor plans, the history of the development, the schools and their ratings, amenities like best restaurants, or where you know, the places that you like the best, any new developments that are coming up, or any condo developments coming up. Obviously the public transit, the options and the times. And I think this is a big one. It's advantages and benefits of your farm area. So, you know, you're going to be selling against another area that might be a 2-minute drive away from your farm area. So why is your farm area better? So you have all those answers and those reasons. And again, you become the expert. What do you need to know about your competition? Is it a team or an individual you go up against? So I'm an individual agent. So my value proposition is I'm selling against teams. I'm not typically selling against any other individual agent. And these teams have warehouses of, 10,000 square feet of staged furniture and things like that. So how I sell against a team is that, I don't have 10 or 15 listings every single month. I might have 2 at a time. And it allows me to give you that, that individual attention to your home that you deserve. And that's how I sell against a team, is that you get me from start to finish. You get me throughout the entire process, from doing an open house to negotiating the contract. And I think people have really liked that I'm there and I don't have 10 listings at a time, because how can you possibly, have that as your main focus if you have 10 or 15 other listings, which my competition typically does at a time. Know your stats. Again, if you're new and you're starting out, know your office stats. We can use those. I did when I first started. Does anyone have any questions about any of this so far, or are we good? Good?
Good for me.
David Capelli has a question here.
Oh, great.
When starting your farm, how many doors would you start with?
So Gary Keller, I'll always remember, said, start with one street at a time and own it. And I love that, because my farm is very small, and that's all I did. Is I ended up getting a listing, and it took me 8 months to get my first listing, and I did feel like giving up, just so you know. But anyways, I just kept going, and I got my first listing. I actually canceled a trip to the in-laws in Saskatchewan. I know it's an easy cancellation of a trip, but I was like, I'm doing this at open house. I have to be here. And so that one street, the neighbor came over to the open house and you know, he's like, hey, I'm thinking of selling my home and would you come over? And so that actual street, I just marketed like crazy, and I ended up bizarrely getting a few sales on that street within that year. And then it just sort of expanded. So I personally think that to start small and to just do it consistently is the most important thing. Because if you chew something off that's too big, it becomes too overwhelming and you won't do it. So my farm is about 6 streets and there's about 100 homes on each side, something like that. And anyways, I just door knock. I door knock for about 2 hours I'll get to it in a minute. But I door knock for 2 hours and I just do one street. And then the next day I do the next one, so that I complete it Monday to Friday for that particular quarter. So my farm area is 600 homes and about 2,500 condos. Obviously we don't door knock condos. But yeah, I have a pretty small farm area. So I would start with that. And then obviously as you get comfortable with it, expand. Does that help, David?
Oh, he's probably on mute.
Okay.
One more question here, Barb, from Dan. How many times will you knock the same house per year?
So I door knock quarterly, religiously, with a newsletter. And if they're not home, I leave it in their mailbox. And if I know them, like most of the people I know now, I always take a pen with me and I write, sorry, I missed you. Hope you're well, or something like that, Barb. I write my own newsletters. I don't use a canned thing or anything like that. I write them very personally. I write that I do have elderly parents and I know what it's like to, and then blah, blah, blah. And then I write about, how you can help or where the resources are. And then I have a chart that says what the sales are in the area on average for a detached, a semi, and a town. Obviously I don't give the addresses. I just give, like an average. And if you're wondering what your home is worth, have me over type of thing. Sorry, Irene, what was that question again? Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
How many times will you door knock the same house per year?
Oh yeah. Okay. So it would be 4 times. And if I have an open house and on that particular street, I'll do a postcard for the area. But if I do have time, I won't door knock that street with my postcard, inviting them to my neighbor's only open house, which will be Thursday night from 6 till 8 p.m. And in that case, they might see me again.
Do you do any other like marketing to like postcards or flyers as well outside of that?
I do. And it's a good question. I do 1 postcard a month. And on the postcard, it says, anyone can tell you what your home is worth. I'd like to tell you what your home could be worth. And then I offer a free design consultation or free design evaluation. And I send my designer in and I pay her $150 for the hour. And if somebody is thinking about selling and they use that particular service, I've never not gotten the listing.
That's amazing.
And then on the other side of the postcard is going to be a featured listing, or I feature a business in the area that I've gone to speak with and said, hey, can you offer the neighbors, 10% off, 10% off or a free appetizer if it's a restaurant. And all they have to do is bring my postcard in and they get the free appetizer. So I have done a few of those, and that's always good because it's totally real estate related, but it's coming, it's coming from a value perspective that's different. So people will say, oh, I actually read your postcards, because they're not like, hey, I sold this property for 105% over asking. I don't ever send stuff like that. It's always just, how can I be of value? So it's work because I have to come up with something creative every month. And I do write my own newsletters, but I do think that it goes a long way when you personalize it that way. So I do a postcard, once a month, I do a newsletter 4 times a year. And then with my open houses in the area, they're gonna get another postcard inviting them to the neighbors only, sneak preview type thing, wine and cheese event. That if it's a really nice house or something, I get it catered to, and we get like some nice wines and good cheeses and stuff like that. No crackers and no crackers though, because people like walk around and eat them and it's a mess after. Just like fruit and cheese, that's it. Anyways, So market knowledge, know the stats in the area off by heart. If I run into someone in the street, they'll say, hey, what's the detached going for? Boom, you got to know that stuff just off by heart. When competitors' strategies bomb, now I'm not talking about, you don't want to say, oh, this agent did this. What I mean is, you know, that they all know that house that has the sign in the yard that hasn't sold, or, you know, it's sitting there for a month. And typically it's an agent that's not familiar with the area and they've overpriced it. So, you know, you can use that as a, remember that house, and they all know it. So just know about strategies that didn't work, because when I'm in my listing presentation, I talk about strategy being the absolute most critical thing in selling a home. Okay, so when you pick a farm, some of you might be sitting there without a farm wondering, how do you pick a farm? So the turnover equation is the number of homes sold divided by the number of homes in the specific area. They, as in the experts, say that if the turnover is 6% or more, it's worthy of starting a farm. My particular farm has a 3% turnover, but you know, it depends on the price point as well. So for me, it works, the 3%. So, you know, the experts say, you know, to start with something like that, and that's good advice. Is there a dominant agent in the area? That's another thing the experts say. I say, don't even worry about that. If there's a dominant agent in the area, don't even think about that so much, because not everybody's going to love that dominant agent. And sometimes the dominant agents get really comfortable. And that's how I was able to break into my particular farm area, because the two dominant agents, they didn't door knock. They just were so busy with all these listings and building a team that they didn't have the time to do it. I got these listings because I showed up, and for no other reason. I was just there. Do you live in your farm area or very close by? As I said, I do think that that's really, really important. And know the seller demographics so that you can market to them. So what I mean by that is, you know, ask yourself, do you match your farm area? Like, you know, I don't know how to put it, but do you know the types of people that are living in this farm, and can you relate to them? Whether it be, maybe it's, you're on a baseball team and there's lots of sports related families in the area, or you know what I'm getting at. Really understand who's living in that farm. And maybe it's seniors. Maybe you love working with seniors. Maybe it's first-time home buyers and you love dealing with them. So really understand who's actually living in that area. And then you got to understand who you are and how you are going to show up for them when you do start your first day of door knocking, and what you're going to say and how you'll approach that. Is there any questions before I get into the stages about this picking a farm, or is everyone good?
Yeah, I think I just, because when I talk about farming, I also talk about turnover, and just in Toronto in general, we can't expect 6 or 7% turnover. I think a lot of the courses even say you should look for 10%, but we don't have that kind of turnover in Toronto. Our farm is less than 4% turnover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're the dominant agent in your farm.
Oh, I know what I wanted to say. With respect to the dominant agent, there's a difference between mind share and market share too. There are some agents that do a lot of marketing, but they don't actually have the true market share. So when you're doing your numbers, if you're investigating what farm to start, you really have to look at the sales as opposed to who's flyering that neighborhood.
Yeah, there's tons of flyers in the mailboxes that I see. Totally. Doing the little things has made a huge difference too. Like if you're door knocking and somebody says, well, I'm, you know, renovating my kitchen, run out to Shoppers, grab a kitchen renovation magazine, leave it there the next day and said, hey, I thought of you, thought maybe you could look and see and maybe get some ideas, just thought of you. Little things like that are going to go a long way, and it doesn't cost thousands of dollars. It's
That's
just
great.
genuine thinking about them. So the stages of farming. So I kind of made this up just to, you know, a lot of people get discouraged, but the key is to really stick with it because it will pay off. The expectation of the agent is what kills the enthusiasm, because I do know this for a fact, because when I did start, I had done 2 quarterly door knocked with my newsletter, and there was nothing. And I'd heard about all these people door knocking the first door and they'd get a listing. And I'm like, oh, what am I doing wrong? This doesn't work. But I kept going and I forged ahead. And then that 3rd quarter, I did get a listing. So it is a slow process. So just know that it's a slow process, and to take your time to bring value to the neighbors and to build a genuine relationship one door at a time. My mindset was before, when I didn't get the listing, I thought, well, I'm going to do this for 1 year and I'm going to at least say I tried. So if I get no listings, that's okay. I'm just going to go out there and be of value. That's how I had to keep myself going. And it eventually it paid off. So step back and ask yourself, if you lived in those homes, what would you like to see from a realtor that showed up at your door that would be of genuine value? So again, just sort of from experience, the months 1 to 6 is to be of value, build a relationship, show a genuine interest to help, and show you care. They're getting to know you at this stage. They might look at you funny when you show up at their door with a newsletter, but just say, hey, I did this newsletter for you. Would you like a copy? The next one, and you're not asking them at this point, do you want to sell your home? You know, if you want to slide it in there, do you know anyone's thinking of making a move in the area? I've got buyers that are looking, fine, you know, but for me, I was just starting out and I wanted to get to know them. So by this month 7 to 12, so this is now the 3rd or 4th time you've seen them, they're getting to like you. They're like, they look forward to your newsletter. They really enjoyed reading the first 2. They like the calendar you gave them. So I do a Leafs calendar and a Blue Jays calendar that's magnetic, that sticks on their fridge. And those go out as well. Forgot the person that asked me about the marketing. I did those for a couple of years as well. So they're getting to like you. They see your open house signs because you got a listing. When you get your first listing, go to town on it. Like, go crazy, do your wine and cheese, market it like crazy, have your signs everywhere, and it will build. Rapport is easy at this stage because they recognize you and trust is building. At this point, you'll start getting home evaluation appointments, or little old ladies will invite you in for tea, and you may get a listing. Months 13 to 18, they're getting to love you. You're getting listings. You know, you get that reputation that, wow, you're out here a lot. You're a hard worker. You'll get people will say that to you. The relationship is formed. They invite you in. The trust level is high. And your competitors start to take notice. And what you'll notice is that they start sending out more flyers and more mail pieces, and they start getting a little more aggressive because they're like, who is this and why are they in my area? So just keep going and don't let up. So after 18 months, yeah, you're going to see, you know, other for sale signs going up. I mean, there's 54,000 or 55,000 of us. They're not all going to list with us. It's going to happen, and you're going to lose some listings that you thought you were going to get, but it's important not to lose confidence. Go visit your VIPs, ask them who they know, just get consoled by them or whatever. They're the best people in your farm area. And just, you know, increase your efforts if things are in a bit of a, you know, I went through a time where 1 year it was just not working, and there were all these signs going up and I didn't know what I was doing wrong. But, you know, it's going to go like this in your farm area a bit, which is great because you have the other pillar of income, which is your database, your past referrals and repeats, sorry, your past clients and your referrals. And don't be afraid to try new things. So at the 2-year stage, you know, you've got some momentum, you've got the energy, your mindset is key. Just keep going back to the basics and keep doing what you did in the beginning, and never lose sight of the actual basics of just providing them with that value and that information, because they appreciate it and they want it. So what kind of skills and qualities do you need? You get confidence through practicing your scripts. So find somebody else that wants to door knock and just team up with them. And you can team up with them and door knock with them if you want. A lot of times when I first started, I door knocked with my mortgage broker, and she would actually provide on the back of my newsletter stuff about interest rates. And she came with me because I was like, I don't know why, I just had this fear of door knocking. And so I said, I'll do the talking, just come with me. And it worked out fantastic. So, you know, think of maybe your stager will go with you. Maybe, you know, a landscaper that'll go with you. Maybe it's a contractor. Whoever you are close with, think about that person that you could bring with you to get you out of that sort of, you know, fear that you may have. But once you do it once, then it's no problem. Just keep going. Overcoming your own misperceptions. For me, it was always like, why would they hire me? I mean, these guys have been in this farm area for years, like 20 years. But, you know, I showed up on the door and that was all it was. Facing fear, mastering your mindset, embrace your authenticity. I really think this is important. Don't try and be like the dominant agent or like who you think you need to be for them. I think it's so important to just really own it, who you are, and then just go to them with who you are. There's going to be people that hire you for that reason, and then, you know, we're not going to win them all. Market area knowledge. If you're just starting out, this would be the #1 most important thing to have, is the market area knowledge. And that is going to give you the confidence to go do it. If nothing else, even if you don't have a listing, that will give you the confidence. So they say to know who you're up against when you are at a listing appointment. It's somewhat important. I don't ask, I just speak about being an individual agent versus a team. Genuine care, personality, and humor. Use your own charm and have your goals written down. So a lot of people say, well, when should I door knock? Choose a time that you will door knock. That's the most important thing, because there's different people home from 9 a.m. to noon and different people home throughout the day. But I know for me, I door knock between 11:30 and 2:30. Those are the times I'm just of that. I don't want to door knock at 9 a.m. I'm worried. I mean, I've had people show up in their robes at the door and I just don't want to do that. So I choose 11:30 till 2:30. I aim to speak to, this is a typo. It's not 50 people per door knocking session. I knock on about 100 doors and I will speak to between 20 and 30 people. So, you know, it's trial and error, find your energy max. So I typically only go for 2 hours at a time. So, and then the other is, how do you track your progress? I'm old school. I have a
Barb.
Yes.
I want to comment on the find your energy thing that you had just mentioned, because I'm a door knocker. And I think it's important for people that aren't door knockers, or maybe they haven't been consistent door knockers, to really truly understand what find your energy means, because everybody's going to have a different barometer for how long they can be out. It took me a while to get from 60 minutes to 90 minutes. So now my barometer is 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you guys are going to start doing door knocking, you really have to figure out what your own barometer is. There's some people that can door knock for 3 hours every day.
Yeah, it's such an important point, because that's where people get frustrated. So I actually try and make it fun. So I'll door knock for an hour and then I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go to Starbucks. I'm going to get my coffee. And then I get a coffee. And then I just, every door that I go up to, I just put my coffee down, I pick it up, and then I go to the next door. But that kind of gives me that break. And I don't know who can go for 3 hours without a bathroom break anyways. I know I can't. So anyway, so that's how I break it up. I usually, after an hour, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go get like a quick coffee here and just take a quick break. And then I'm re-energized. I'm like, awesome. I only have one more side of the street to go. And I will not stop until I finish that side of the street. So that's my goal. I have to finish that street. That was my goal for the days, but it usually is done within 2 hours. So really important point. Thank you.
So Barb, can I ask you one question? Thanks for being back here. What's the most difficult time have you experienced is through the door knocking experience?
So I won't door knock early in the morning because people get very angry and I don't want anyone angry with me. Right. And I actually personally, I don't door knock when people are making dinner either. When I door knock, during those times, I find that people just have so much time in the day to chat. And in my particular area, the people that are home are either people that work from home or they're retired. So they're happy to have a chat. They're not angry that I'm at their front door. They look forward. They want to know what's going on in the market. But I did door knock a few times early and it didn't go over well. So I think that's probably the worst time to door knock, because there are actually a lot of people that sleep in. And I'm not talking about COVID time. I'm talking about, I'm like, who are these people sleeping in at like 9:30? But anyway.
Right. Okay, thanks.
It's really fun when other realtors open the door and they're in their pajamas. That's my favorite. Anyway. Or like the guy that answers the door and he's like, my wife's a realtor.
How do you respond to that?
She's like in the kitchen, right? Like doing whatever. I'm like, that's great. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I don't say anything. I'm just like, oh, that's great. I guess you're taken care of then. Anyways, that's fun. So you can have your own system how to keep track. So if you are just starting out, I was trying to figure out how I can do this because I started getting all these notes and back to my office and pages flying. So I have a binder that I created, and it's like a quadrant each page. And Ruth actually went into Geo Warehouse and got the names of the homeowners. And so with the address, so when I go door knocking, I take my binder with me and I write notes. And so one of the things to get their email address or their phone number is I'll say, hey, would you like to be invited to my next wine and cheese open house? Now I may not have a listing, but I'll say it anyway, because I believe one day I will. And they'll be like, a wine and cheese open house or a VIP neighbors open house. Yeah, I want to be invited to that. I like wine. Great. What email can I send it to? And then I've got my binder and my pen, you know, and maybe you guys have your own digital way of doing it, which is totally fine. Just whatever way you'll do it to keep track of those notes, that's the key. So when I come back to the office, I go to my book and I'm like, hey, I had a great conversation with that person. I'm going to send them a quick handwritten note. Thank you for talking to me at the door. You know, if you ever need any information, please just reach out to me and I'll see you at the next open house wine and cheese. So now when I have an open house wine and cheese, I get a lot of people that come, mostly because they just want to come and have some wine and talk to the neighbors and check out the house. So it's actually, it kind of all goes hand in hand. This with the, you know, someone asked me about the marketing. The open house wine and cheese is just as important as the once a month flyer, as it is the newsletter. It all goes hand in hand. Yeah, so that's how I ask. Yeah.
Yeah, can I jump in, because we
Please do.
struggle with how to take notes and how to organize people. We at one point did everything digitally. So Bridget had pulled all of the Geo Warehouse registries for every single person in the farm, and she stitched them together and she put them on my iPad, and we were trying to go paperless, and it was a complete dud because it was way too hard to manage. So I went back to just clipboard, and I have just a regular Excel spreadsheet for every street, and I have street name at the top, house number, name, contact info, and notes. Because I find at the door it's a lot easier to just do a really quick handwritten note rather than stand there and try and, like, you know, do this, because it's very impersonal, and you can say like, hey, let me just jot that down. Because even for anybody that's really, really tech savvy, I think standing in front of somebody and trying to enter information digitally is really impersonal. So I found just going back low tech really works.
Well, it's easy to look at too when you're back at your office. Yeah, this is my farm book here. So I've got it done in the by street or whatever, and then so oh, you can't see it, but I'll put like do not knock, realtor lives there, or I'll put this one here says do not knock, but it's okay to leave a newsletter. And then I've got one that says nasty man, and then the one that said nasty man, he was like super mean at the door, but then his wife called me for a CMA like a month ago, and I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. So even though the man's nasty, still go to the door if they haven't told you not to knock. I keep notes, like if someone's like really nice, you know, super nice people, they have this dog, the dog's name's Lucy, like I keep every note that I can think of so that when I'm going back again, I know who I'm talking to. So when I door knock now, I say, oh, hey, Jane, how are you? And she's like, oh my God, you remembered my name. Well, I've got it in the binder. So it becomes so much more personal now.
I'm just curious, when there's like signs that say do not knock or solicit, do you
I'm sorry, can you say it one more time a bit louder?
Yeah, so when you see signs on the door that say do not knock or do not solicit, does that do anything for you?
So if it says specifically, if it says sales agents, like if it actually says sales agents, there was a time where I knocked anyways, and I said, this is what I'll say. Hi, I just want to let you know that I respect the sign that you put up. I just wanted to know if you'd like my quarterly real estate newsletter that I've put together for the neighbors in the area. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I would like that. So a lot of times those signs are for like window washers or, you know, furnace cleaners or duct cleaners or whatever, right? So it can be scary. And at first I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna knock and I'm just gonna ask them, I respect your sign. Would you like my quarterly real estate newsletter? And if they say no, I'll say, okay, I'll make note of that, not to drop one off. And I only actually have one in my farm that says, he looked at me and then he looked at the sign and I was like, okay, like he didn't really say anything. So I just like, do not knock on this house. So you're not going to get everybody, but that's how I deal with that. Most of the people really do want your information. They just don't want to be sold at the door. Okay. Yeah, make notes of doors not to knock. There are a few that say, you know, I have a baby, don't knock, just leave the newsletter. My dog goes crazy, so please just leave the newsletter. So I have a few of those. I love the idea of a door knock partner. If you have any fear whatsoever of doing this consistently, I can tell you that it made me consistent, because when I did first start, I was like, oh, you know, I don't know, it's pretty cold out there. And she'd be like, well, we did the newsletter. You paid for them, so we should probably deliver it. And that was a good point. So she actually in the beginning motivated me to do it. The only time I don't door knock is if it's pouring rain. We door knock in the snow, and if it's really, really cold or if it's really windy, and we door knock when it's 40 degrees in the summer. Maybe not that hot, but as long as it's not too hot. But raining and door knocking for me don't work because my binder gets all wet and people don't really, it just doesn't work. Got an umbrella, it's just too much. So that's the only time I don't door knock. It makes it fun and more enjoyable, and you'd be surprised that how many homeowners know the person you're with. They're like, oh, hey, how you doing? You know, their kids could go to school together, or they know each other from a sports team, and then everything just becomes easy at the door. Creates good energy and it keeps you accountable.
Oh, I got a question about, sorry, can you hear me better now? Probably. Yeah. Question about dogs at the home. So I've door knocked a couple and then heard like dogs barking really loudly, or like they come running to the door and then like, you know, whoever the owner is trying to hold back the dog and I'm trying to talk with them. Like, what do you like go back there, or like how do you handle that?
Yeah, that happens a lot. And I always just say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm a huge dog lover, which I am. So, hey, I don't mind if your dog jumps on me. I'm so sorry. I'm just here with my quarterly newsletter. I was wondering if you'd like a copy of it. And they'll be like, oh yeah, no problem. And they'll sneak out if they want to talk to me, or if they don't want to talk to me, they'll take the newsletter and shut the door. So I kind of let them guide me. But for the most part, most people will want your newsletter. And I always just say, you know what, hey, I'm a dog lover. I get it. I have a dog at home. They're excited. They like to see people. Most people, I'd say the majority, are good with that. But let them guide you, and then just say, hey, you know, I got to ask, have you thought about a move? I've got buyers asking me all the time. They really want a detached house in this area. Have you thought about a move? Or do you know maybe of a neighbor that's thinking about it? You know, and you can just slide into that conversation. But I don't let much to deter me unless they tell me that they don't want me knocking on their door because of the dog, or because they don't want me to wake anyone up. And I totally respect that. And I make a note of that. And I just don't do it. I'll put the newsletter in the mailbox and that'll be it. Does that help?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, great. Trying to think of any other situations that come up where people like are disturbed, but I think that was it. If somebody's grumpy at the door, it doesn't mean they won't hire you. That's one thing I learned. I had one that said grumpy man in my book, and he actually called me. So that was about a year ago, and I listed his home and everything was fine. He was grumpy, but everything worked out. So people want to know how often, when, what do I bring, what do I say? So it depends on the size of your farm. Like I told you guys how many homes are in mine. And some people say start with 1,000. I say start with a street and just keep going and keep consistent. And have a goal that you're going to do it once per quarter with your newsletter. I wouldn't go spending a whole bunch of money on postcards to begin with, but once people start to get to know you, then I would implement that, because the postcards are the most expensive. It costs me $1,026.44 every month to send my postcard, but it pays off in the long run. But I would wait and do that until you start to get some traction, because door knocking's free and your newsletters can be done very cheaply. So someone asked me what time, at a time you will commit to. And just because I don't door knock at 9 a.m. doesn't mean that you can't. Maybe in your area, people are early birds and they like that. So I personally think Saturday and Sunday would be the absolute best days to door knock, but I don't do it. But I would say that everybody would be home and you'd get a lot more doors open. I think it would probably be brilliant to do.
Saturday mornings for me were awesome. I only did it for the first time like 3 years ago and wondered why I'd never done it before. Like you go Saturday morning at like 10:30 when everybody's awake, but they're always in a good mood. They, you know, it's not dinner, it's not too early. I would say Saturday mornings are great. So
like for me, I would never go Saturday morning because of the man that showed up naked in his robe, and he was like livid that I don't know what he was doing, but
why do you open the door?
What's that?
Why do you open the door?
Exactly. It's like people that answer the door and they're like, I'm on a conference call, I'm on the phone. I'm like, why did you answer the door? But people, they're not who you you are not who they thought you were going to be. I don't know who he thought I was supposed to be. But so then I was like, oh man, I'm not doing door knocking Saturday morning. But you had a great experience, and that's why it's so important to share these experiences, because you know, it could be different for everybody. So the point is to do what works for you in your area. What do I bring with me? So bring something of value. You know, if you don't have a newsletter and you haven't written one, print out Market Watch from MLS, print it out and just say, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I don't know, highlight your particular, you know, the average price point, or just highlight what the latest details for year over year for that month, what the increase in price was and what the number of sales were. Bring that with you and leave that at the door. You know, over time, you could leave a pen at the door and say, hey, I just wanted to, you know, do some branded pens that cost $1 or something to do. Maybe it's a magnetic calendar. Irene, I'm sure you have some suggestions too of bringing something to the door that's of value, that maybe it's something that they can remember you by too.
We've had really good success with yard bags. We initially had them branded, which was fantastic until that company went out of business. So we started just buying Canadian Tire and Lowe's yard bags and printing up a sticker, one that was big enough to at least, you know, cover like the 1/3 of the bag.
Yeah.
And that's awesome because people say, oh, I'm not selling my house. And you can say, you don't have to. I just wanted to give you some yard bags to use when you do your lawns.
Exactly. And there's so many creative ideas out there.
And the one benefit of COVID and yard bags not being picked up right now, there's a whole bunch of bags sitting by the side of the road with our stickers on them.
That's funny.
In our farm, it's great.
That's funny.
Although I wouldn't count on that as a strategy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's tons of creative ideas. I had ordered these branded pens. I thought they were going to be like this size, and they came in this box and they are this size. Right? And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do with these pens? These are ridiculous. They're like for kids. Like, it's huge. Well, wouldn't you know that a mistake turned out to be something that everybody loves. So I give these out at open houses. I give them out if I'm door knocking, and you know, they're just great. They don't last long, but they're funny. The kids love them. And if you put it at the bottom of your purse, you're never going to lose it. You can find it. Anyways, it turned out to be this funny thing that people love. So one other thing I'll share with you that I did in the winter time that actually was really well received is just did a flyer with somebody doing a snow angel and just said, hey, we're your snow angels. If you have trouble shoveling the snow off your walk, give us a call. Oh, and we'll come and shovel your walk for you, because I only have 600 homes, and there are some single elderly women in the area that just, you know, even in elderly men that just can't get out and do it. And we had a couple of people and said, hey, are you the snow angels? Can you come to our house? And it was awesome. So then the neighbors see you doing that, I'm just saying they see that you're out there working hard. And you know, now is definitely not the time to farm, but if you do have a farm now, there's nothing wrong with sending out a postcard or flyer that says, hi, you know, my name is Irene. I am, you know, in your area. This is my work address. And if you have trouble getting any of the 4 things, pharmacy, groceries, I don't know, whatever else that people can't get to, tick one of these off and, you know, email me or whatever it is. And I'll come and I'll drop it off at your doorstep. So it's just like an idea of what you can do during these times if you do have a relationship with people in your farm. You can do it to your database for that matter. Be authentic. Think of what they would want, what keeps them up at night. The number one thing I think is like, how can I get the most money for my home and what renovations do I need to do to get that money? That's what they're thinking about. So give them the answer before they even ask you. And that's what that design evaluation is all about, by the way. Is letting them know that I'm there to help them get the most amount of money for their home. And that's how you can truly differentiate yourself, is just by being different than all the other agents that send postcards that say, hey, I sold this house for 110% over asking, because that's not of value to them. And they really, I don't think they care. I don't know, maybe they do, but for the most part, I think they're thinking about themselves, and that's what we need to cater to.
Hey, Barb.
Yes.
Sorry, I had a question.
Hey, what are you doing on this call?
Hi, I'm stalking you. I'm just trying to learn.
Happy birthday. Okay, what's up?
Thank you very much. Question for you is, you kind of answered in the last one, is what are you doing during this whole pandemic in your farm?
So I actually, you know, at first I did nothing because I was so freaked out. I was like, you know, I was like, I don't know what to do. I was just, you know, had 5 listings and nothing was happening. And I was actually managing the emotions of these sellers, 2 of whom have already bought something and absolutely need to sell. And I took on, you take it on because you care about them and they're in a tough spot and I have to try and sell their home. So I wasn't doing anything. And then, you know, it's been 3 weeks now. So this week I've actually focused on emailing individually people that are in my farm area and just saying, hey, how are you coping? How are you handling this time? How are you holding up? If there's anything that you need, just let me know. If you need like chocolate or chips or anything like that. Like I don't just put, do you need anything from the pharmacy or the grocery store? I'm like, hey, do you need any treats? Because the dollar, I think it's a dollar store. Is it the dollar? The dollar store has like these aisles and aisles of, and there's nobody in there. And so I've picked up some chocolate and some chips for myself too. But like something like that is like different because like everyone's offering to do groceries and that's awesome. And I'm like, hey, if you need an Easter bunny, let me know. I'm going up there, blah, blah, blah. So I've emailed people individually and just said, hey, Lorraine, I'm wondering how you are making out in this time. And I just really started with the older clientele in my farm area. And I did it individually because it just is so personal and it takes a lot of time, but that's what we do. That's what farming is it takes time. And that's just the reality. And I don't want to say this to sound the wrong way, but it will pay off because you're doing it from your heart. It's not a mass email.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome. What do I say? Oh, so some people say, well, what do you say at the door? When I first started, I was like, hi, just wanted to let you know that I'm your neighbor. I live in the area. I'm the neighborhood realtor. Can't remember exactly what I said, but something along those lines. And I just wanted to be of value to my neighbors and let you know I'm here if you have any questions. Do you have any questions about the real estate market? No, we're good. Okay, well, I was just wondering, I put together this newsletter and I wrote it and I was wondering if you'd like a copy of it. It gives the latest sales in the area and, you know, latest sales in the area, what sold in the last 3 months. Would you like a copy? No, nobody ever said no to that because they want to see those stats. So that's what I led with. And now I just go and say, hey, how you doing? You know, and then just now it's just a natural conversation. If it's someone I haven't met, I'll say, hey, I have my quarterly newsletter. Would you like a copy of it? And just wondering, have you thought about a move in the next 3 to 6 months, a year? It just kind of changes. That's usually what I say. But it's mostly a conversation now. Yes, Irene?
Barb, yeah, maybe I'll jump in there too. This goes
Please
back
do.
to your VIPs. When I first started in our farm, we did 3 flyers and then I started to door knock. And it was pretty funny how many people said, "Oh, I see your flyers all the time." Which, I mean, I know that we sent only 3.
Right.
So that was interesting. But I introduced myself. We didn't live in the area at the time. I said we'd be doing more business in the area, and always led with the, who do you know in the neighborhood that might be selling? And most people said nobody, 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 until the one, the woman that knows everything in the neighborhood pointed kitty corner across the intersection and, kind of did this, so sad, quiet. Son moved in with his parents to take care of them, and he died first, and then they passed away soon after. So it was very, very sad, but she said you might want to look them up. So I actually found the sister in Cambridge, reached out to her, and then got the listing. And that was after 3 months, which is really fast for farm, right? I mean, you talked about how long it actually takes to get any traction. And we had a 12-month plan to just like get our first listing in 12 months. And it took us 3 because of that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, this was really good.
Yeah, you just, it's a good point. You just kind of, you got to ask the question. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I can't even believe I forgot to ask if they're thinking about moving, because we've just had this great conversation. And I always make sure I look at my book. Do I have their email address or their phone number? Or if I don't have one or the other, I'm like, oh, hey, I have your email, but I don't have your number. And just in case, I can call you for the wine and cheese, and I should get this info. And everyone will just be like, by this time, they'll be like, oh, yeah, okay. And just so you know, it's been 4 years and about 4.5 years since I've been in my farm. So that's how long I've been doing it.
What's your market share there?
So when I'm in a listing presentation, so my market share, how I've calculated, I don't know if it's the right way or not, but my market share is 60%, which means like what I'll do is I'll show at 9 of the 9, what is it? I don't know, hang on. It's 9 of the 15 homes have been sold by me, or whatever, it equals 60%. So what I did was I looked back that year, and out of the, I don't know if it was 12 homes or 9 or 15 homes, whatever 60% is, I can't think right now. So I sold 9 of the 15 homes, so it equaled 60%. So 60% of the homes in this area this year I sold. So now I go back 2 years, and I'm like, okay, out of this many homes, this is how many I've sold. So I actually have a, Ruth did up a chart, and it has the street that the home sold on and which ones was sold by me. Like it'll say something like Remax, and then it'll say, my name with, KWA type of thing. And I'm like, so this street here, I sold 4 homes, and then there's 1 agent. So I give them that visual so they can see,
Great. That's really good.
but that 1 year I had only sold 2 homes in the area. So like that brings that average way down. Right. And there were very few homes sold that year, but still it wasn't a great year for the farm, but that's, I guess that's just going to happen. So when I'm in a listing presentation, one of the reasons why I think it's so important to do the farm in your area is one of my value propositions is that I say things like, I'm an individual agent, I just live up the street. I'm literally 30 seconds away, and I can put your mail in. I'm doing someone's mail right now. He's in Texas. I can turn the lights off. Agents don't turn all the lights off. You can ask them all you want, and the house is all lit up. And I'm like, oh, I'll take my dog for a walk at night. I'll make sure the lights are out, and if your sidewalk, if it's in the winter, it needs shoveling, I don't mind going over there if you're away. So all those little value adds kind of play into that. And the fact that I live so close gives them comfort knowing that I can project manage their home when they're away during the period. So a lot of people say, I'm not selling anytime soon. That's great. I'm not here to sell your home now. I'm just here to be of value to my neighbors, and that's really what you're there for, is to build that relationship so that when they do, they'll think of you. And that's what this whole exercise today is about, is that they will think of you. And I think you said it earlier, Irene, it's mind share that's the most important, that you get their mind share. And how can you be top of mind when they go to think about that or they go to talk about that?
That's good.
Oh, we already have an agent. Oh, are they a good agent? I mean, you can say whatever you want, there's 55,000 of us. It's always great to get a second opinion. Is it a friend of yours? Oh, it's a friend of yours. Well, see, I'm really easy to fire if things go wrong, but if it's your best friend, that's kind of tough. Or if it's your uncle or your aunt or your niece, that family dinner is really awkward when things don't go well. I mean, there's lots of things you can say around that. But always, if they do and they're serious that they do have an agent, obviously I respect that. And I said, oh, that's great. Who is your agent? And, would you consider getting a second opinion? Because I think a second opinion is really helpful. I talk about being the neighborhood expert, so I'd love to be able to tell you what it is. And if you hire them, that's great. If they say it's their niece, I always try to go for a co-list. Oh no, we're listening with our niece because, she just got her license. Oh, you're listing with your niece. It's a $2 million home. How about I help her? I will do this. I will co-list with her. I've done that before, but they didn't take me up on it. And then the house sat on the market for a while. But you got to try these things. You got to get creative when these objections happen. I'm going to sell it to my neighbor. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Irene, what would you say to that? Oh, I'm just going to sell it. I'm just going to sell it to my neighbor.
Yeah, well, it's really going to depend. I would talk about market value and figure out if you position the house to its best and can get market value or more, would the neighbor still be willing to pay that price? In our opinion, any private sale typically has been less, or private offer has been less than what we would sell it for after we get paid.
Exactly. 70% of private sales in real estate go into litigation too. So, you want to make sure that you're protected. This is a legal document. It's really important that you have somebody that's, fighting for you on your side, because who knows what could happen at closing date. You don't know, you didn't do a home inspection. You didn't know you had mold in your attic, or you have what's the word I'm looking for? Your basement was flooded once and it's all moldy or whatever, you know what I'm getting at. I'm rambling, sorry. If I sell, where am I going to go?
Well, that's not an objection. That's a condition right now in our environment, right?
Yeah. Like, you know what? Like, people say that at the end of the day, it's not really an objection. They haven't thought about moving and they're not motivated. So our job is to uncover the motivated, not, like how many times you've heard, oh, if you get me $3 million, I'll sell my home. And really their value is $1 million. Like, so those aren't motivated people. So basically just go back to, hey, I'm here on your doorstep just to get to know you and build the relationship and give you this newsletter, and hopefully you find it valuable. So door knocking and farming, and really it's up to us. It's our level of commitment. It's our consistency to stay focused. It's your goals. What do you want to, like, how many pillars of income do you want? I mean, with Keller Williams, it's awesome. We have profit share. We have our database. You could start a farm, and your farm could be not necessarily a geographical farm. I'm talking today about a geographical farm, but it could be a mom's group. It could be like a niche market, like a sports group. Like I know people that are on multiple sports teams, right? It could be, that's your farm and that's your other pillar of income. And you must, genuinely care. It's not about door knocking to get some money, because that just won't work, because it just won't. You'll come across as disingenuous. So it has to be something you really want to do, because it will pay off, but it's a long-term game.
Barb, we do have another question from David Capelli, and this was a little while ago. I'm sorry, I didn't notice.
Oh yeah, no, perfect. We can do questions now because the presentation's over.
Oh, cool. So before you gained market share, how did you answer? I guess this was the, why would we hire you? Did you point to testimonials or where you rank among TREB realtors?
So I do now talk about that. I'll say something like, oh, well, just so you know, you're in really good hands. And I'm not good at sort of that kind of stuff, like not bragging or whatever, but I'm just like, I'll say something like, oh, I just want to let you know you're in really good hands if you do hire me. And then I'll show them a stat or something. But when I was starting out, that was always my fear, is I hadn't sold the home in that particular area. And I didn't have those kind of stats. So, what I really did was, I worked on my listing presentation with KJ Lork and a couple other people from my office. I was in a mastermind, and we thought, well, we want listings, list to last. So let's get good on these listing presentations. I go to every single family reunion. I never miss it. I always come away with something incredibly valuable. One of the big things that I got from family reunion was it was a guy from the US, and he started a Facebook community page. And that's kind of what gave me the idea to approach the businesses in my area and do something for them and put it on the back of my postcard and let people know that I was coming from, contribution to help these businesses, do well in our area, because, it's not going so well, and offer them something and just be different. And it was amazing to do. I did videos with them as well. We highlighted certain business owners on the back of the postcard, and it's fun to do, and it's something different. This year, I was able to be invited to Gary Keller's individual agent mastermind, which was mind-blowing. I just sat there. I just couldn't believe it. And one lady stood up and said she started a Facebook group, and she's the host of it, and it's in her farm. And I think this is a brilliant idea, so I'll share it with you. She said, yeah, it's kind of like a portal. So if one neighbor needs a power washer, they go on my Facebook site and they're like, let's say her name is Jane. Hey, Jane, I need my front porch power wash. Does anybody have a power wash thing I can do? So she actually has a communal shed that has all these items, from a margarita machine rental to a bouncy castle to a power washer to a ladder to you name it. And so this lady is like the mayor of her farm. She has 12,000 people that belong to this Facebook group. And she's like, when they go to list, they list with me.
Is that Nikki?
What's that?
Is that Nikki Klein?
I actually can't remember her name. I was just listening to all these ideas, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. That sounds familiar though. So there's just so many great ideas that you can get from these events. And, anyways, I just wanted to share that one with you because I thought, wow, that's value for that particular farm area.
It's a big farm.
I don't have a shed either. I live in a condo, so. But I will drop off a margarita machine. I will do that.
Yeah, but you don't have to be the storage facility. You can just be the facilitator, right?
Yeah, exactly. You
can
start.
Joe meet Bill. You guys can get together and,
Totally. Hosting something like that. So she posts every day. And so for me, hey, one day maybe that would be a great thing to take on. I just think it's a brilliant idea. And you're right. You don't actually have to have that. You can just put people together. It's kind of like the business directory of helping people. If you're an accountant, go around and help our vendors or whatever, right? Whatever you call them. What is it? Preferred suppliers. That's what I meant. My brain's not working that great these days. Okay, so my presentation is over, and I'd love to answer any other questions that anybody has.
I have a question about how do you farm condos?
Okay, so I live in a condo, and that's actually how I started with the whole really farming concept, although I probably didn't know it at the time. It happened organically. I had a listing in my building, and somebody told me to do a wine and cheese Friday night from 6 till 8. So I put up all these signs on the bulletin board, and then I dropped off a little card in the inside of every door. There's 104 units in my building. And I said, hey, I'm listing this place, and I'm doing a wine and cheese, so come on by. And then at the very bottom of the card, it says, if you're curious about the value of your condo, let me know. So then people would come into the condo, and I would get their name and their unit number. And it was really easy because they all gave me the information because they got a glass of wine, and I live in the building, so they're not going to write down something fake. And the next day I wrote handwritten notes to everybody that gave me their info and that came by, and just said, if you ever want a condo evaluation, let me know. And it was interesting because I got another listing not long after that. And then I did another wine and cheese. And I live in a building, there's a lot of older people too. And a couple of the older ladies would say, thank you so much for having a open house party. We really look forward to this Friday nights. It's like, well, it's not really a party, but they saw it as this social event that they could come to. And they would ask me, when's your next open house social? When's your next open house party? So then I had to like really, you know, just buy one bottle of wine, one red, one white, because some people were actually like staying the whole time. I'm like, this isn't a party. But anyways, so I just got to know people that way. And so when someone went to go sell their condo, they called me because there was no one else in the building. And so, I live in my farm. So then there's 5 buildings along where I live. And so then I would just send a message to the other buildings like, hey, if you're thinking of selling, here's blah, blah, blah. So we can't knock on condos, but what we can do is you can direct mail them. So if I sell a condo that's sold for, you know, X amount, and I think it's a good time for them, and I do have buyers that have come to my open houses, I'll write that letter and say, hey, I just want to let you know I sold this 2+1 and it was a record price. And if you're thinking about selling, let me know. I do have people asking me all the time that want to live in this area if you're interested. And I do get a lot of, I should say a lot, but you know, I'm always surprised. I'll get a couple of phone calls from those direct mail campaigns, and they'll say, well, I am kind of curious. We're not selling, but it's a great opportunity because you start the relationship. And then when they are ready, you're the one that they're going to sell with. So I do drop a little note I make it really small and not obnoxious. So no one tells on me, like, you know, we're probably not supposed to leave something at the door, but I'll do it until they tell me not to. But most people say, this always happens in a condo. Hey, can you come over right after this open house and tell me what you think of my condo? Without fail, you're going to get people that want to come over, or that want you to come over and tell you what their place is worth.
So true.
So yeah, no, I love the condo opportunity.
Barb, would you have any recommendations to somebody who didn't live in a specific building and tried to farm it?
Yeah, that's a tough one for sure, but and it'll be expensive. But if you do want to specialize in condos, it's got to be about postcards and direct mail. And for direct mail, you got to write your own letters to say, you know, like I get a lot of letters in my mailbox in the year that'll say, you know, dear Barb, we have a buyer for your condo. So I would just say, don't do that, because those letters all say the same thing. We have a buyer for your condo. No, you don't. You might, and it might be a good fit and it might not. So I think it's important how you write that letter. So I would just be totally different from all the other agent letters that you know that show up. I'm sure they show up at houses too. And just, I would speak about what's happening in the market and why condos are in demand and why they've gone up year over year. You can talk about immigration numbers that, you know, we have 170,000 people moving to Toronto every single year to the GTA, and that number is not going to go down. We have a shortage of housing and condos are affordable, and hence why your condo is in demand. And if you've thought about selling, let me know. I'll let you know what you need to do to get it ready to get you the most amount of money. And always end with there's no one that's going to be able to do that better than I am. I don't know, say so, whatever works for you and your personality, just always end it with like a confidence, bold statement. Because that's what people want at the end of the day.
Barb, can I ask you a quick question?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Question?
It's David Capelli. Yeah, can I ask a quick question?
Can you speak louder, please?
Yeah.
We can't hear you, Dave.
I mean, just checking my earphones.
Oh, that's good.
There we go. Oh, you're muted now. Mute.
Can he type it?
Oh, there he goes. Go, Dave. No? Did you want to ask the question that you just typed in about hashtags? Actually, no, that was a statement, not a question. Do you want to type your question in, David? Okay, David's having technical difficulties.
I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I've maybe missed. I
don't know. I thought that was really comprehensive. Maybe if David's working on his microphone, if anybody else wants to ask anything.
funny 'cause
No, you did such a great job, Barb. I think you answered everybody's questions. Oh, there we go. Would you knock your quarterly flyer in this climate or just drop it off? Oh,
I would do neither. I'm not doing anything right now. I'm not doing lead gen at all that way, not at all. I'm just, like I said, the reason why is some people are paranoid about picking up stuff out of their mailbox, like surface of things. I just don't want to be that agent that, like, this will pass and we will get through this and we will be eventually back in business. But my personal philosophy is I'm just going to be there for them if they need anything, if they want to talk, if they want to know what's going on in the real estate market. But I am not asking anybody if they want to buy or sell right now.
yeah.
And unless they tell me they want to buy or sell right now, then I'll have those conversations. But I think we're in a really sensitive time right now, and everybody's mental health is like on edge. And I think that being there for people and being positive and supportive is really, I think it should be our main goal. And when this does pass, oh, go gangbusters, you know, hey, like, go for it.
Yeah, agreed. I'm with you on that.
Call up other agents too and say, how you doing? I think that's a really nice thing to do, because there's, you know, a lot of people right now that are just trying to figure out how to get through the day. So call up people and ask how you're doing. It'll go a long way, I think. And yeah, thank you so much, Irene, for having me. I really appreciate
Well, thank you.
Thank
Your virtual hand. Thank you so much. We did record this, so if anybody wants a recording of it, let Janice and Andy know. And Barb, thank you so much. That was fantastic. I got lots of notes.
You're welcome. And I just want to say, if anybody that's on the call has any questions, they can always reach out to me anytime. My email is barb@barbbest.ca, and you guys have my number. It's easy to find. So just reach out if you want to talk one-on-one. I've got lots of time.
Thanks, Barb.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
That was great, Barb.
Thank you, Irene.
Yeah,
Thank you,
that's so
Irene.
cool. You did a great